Yes, welcome to yet another very important show. Fidelis, I can see you. Can you see me?
Oh, afternoon.
Welcome, Honorable Fidelis, and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Do we have Honorable Saboi? Honorable Saboi, can you see us? Just a minute as we wait.
Awe tuamona Mzambia tuamona lero abanesu tuyezi muli akawere yo tuyezi muli chipowe yo tuyezi muli nsala tuamona lero ambapwe bashayishi bokulemba twakulapanga shani amakooperative mwe bantu Wabashazambilira twakulapanga shani amakooperative mwe bantu lero twamona kawere Muzambia twamona lero yo twamona lero twamona mwebera Zambia omukulu tapusaka bwe bana besu mwamona mwatuleterera fwe bafyashi benu twaletira we mwana ateka akasanga mulinso we mwana awo abana besu bayimane bakane mikaso achitulefu achenji kamyebere polelo tuyezi mwayimona muli ubuchushi muchalo yo mwane tuyezi afika mwe bantu muli ubuchushi muchalo yo mwane bambi baletira tieni tubike omutende patebo usho omutende kuti mwalya bambi nabo baletira ti free education usho kukwafumine takwali free education yo isuleni ameso mwebe na Zambia yo mwane.
Yeah, this is very cardinal. It's like what is going on in Zambia right now, where the former ruling party is trying to rebrand, and then there is this slogan called Alebwele Lapo, which simply means he's coming back. And then the sitting president heard about that, and he echoed it in the public space. Now, with that, it shows politics, not leadership. There's a huge difference between politics and leadership. When you are in government, you don't respond to every political statement. Because when you respond to any political statement, you get detracted. And when you get detracted from the real thing, you begin to lose your throne of authority. You begin to be an equal politician. As a result, you fail to deliver on the promises and the manifesto you gave to the people. And once that hits you, the time your term is over, your people that put you in power, they come in and they say, hey, come on, let's check this guy out. He failed to deliver. Why? Because when you were in authority, you did not use power, you used politics to govern. Leaders are not supposed to use politics to govern. They are supposed to use leadership. And in leadership, you pass policies. In leadership, you pass recommendations. In leadership, you bring solution to the table.
The president to take keen interest in the Ministry of Agriculture, in the Ministry of Health, and in the Ministry of Mines. These three ministries, to say the least, are not doing any good to the country Zambia today. I'm trying to be factual. If he wants, he can call me. I can go and tell him This one is doing this one is doing that, and this one is doing this. What we want is our nation to take off. The reason why people voted for change is because they wanted change. If we are not going to bring this change, it is us in Zambia who remain languishing. We cannot sit here and pretend all is well. We know that people are being rewarded for having been in prison, 6.4 million, and we just sit here and fold our arms. That is money that me, as a member of parliament, will stay in this house and will never get. But just a case, sitting in the prison for 5 months or so, you are awarded 6.4 million. And the budget is going to come here. You expect the people of Lundazi to support. They will not support that one. Why am I saying that? We need to be methodical, as you always talk about. I submit.
The time is up. Thank you.
The president to take in.
We have seen the few videos from Zambia, and now we have a feel of what it is to be a Zambian today. Welcome to this very important talk show here at Call to Activism Africa, where we're going to be discussing matters Zambia. We shall be handling the human rights situation in Zambia. And in the studio, I have three very important guests from Zambia. One is the Honorable Fidelis Ngoma, who is the policy analyst and is going to be taking us through his field of expertise regards Zambia. And of course, we have a very, very important honorable also in the studio. That is Honorable Saboi Imboela. You excuse me if I speak the name wrongly. She's the NDC president and opposition leader in Zambia. We should also be having Honorable Luckson Lungu, who is a board chairperson of SEARS, which is a civil rights organization. So today we are here having this show with me, my co-host, Brian Kabeko, who is in Kenya, and of course, Linda T, who is based in South Africa. And in the studio to manage this is Dennis Bongole, who is based in Uganda. I am Kato Mukasa, your host, right here in Newcastle, in England, to ensure that we have this show reaching to you. And today we are talking about Zambia and the human rights situation in Zambia. Welcome, Fidelis. Welcome, Honorable Saboi. And of course, welcome, Honorable Lungu, for this very interesting episode today. And we are going to be discussing Zambia. And you have seen the video, you have seen the situation in Zambia. I'll be giving you just a brief about Zambia today. How is Zambia today as we wait for our guests to get live? Of course, Zambia has been independent for some good time. Of course, we can trace the leadership right from the most remarkable leader in Zambian politics. We can remember Kaunda. We can remember Kenneth Kaunda and his days there. Then we can also remember the contribution of Chiluba, Mwanawasa. There was also Scott. And of course, we had Lungu. Welcome, Linda. And then we have Chilima, who is the current sitting president, who is almost 2 years in office. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you. Hello, Kato. Hello, Fidelis. Good to see you. It's good to have you back on the show again.
Good to see you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
great.
Good to see Mr. Fidelis back in the studio, and of course, good to see my co-host Linda with me tonight.
Yes, sorry I'm late. It's the South African load shedding again, but I'm here now.
It's becoming a problem in motherland Africa. I'm just privileged to be here where there's no load shedding, but in Uganda it's a problem too.
All over Africa, we are struggling with electricity, rising food prices, rising fuel prices, rising unrest, corrupt governments and presidents. What can I say? It's the same for all of us.
Yet we have the source of electricity in many of our countries. We have the social
Exactly.
system, but we don't have enough power. Now, Mr. Fidelis, I wonder whether
Yes.
Ms Saboi is within the studio. I don't know whether she's within.
Yeah,
Fidelis, can you indicate?
she had said that she was having difficulties in logging in. I didn't, so I'd advise to say the person who sent you the link can help you to log in again.
We are going to do whatever it takes to have her on the set. Dennis is going to work on that, and Kabeko Brian, our admins, will be working on that. Linda, today we are having Zambia again. Linda, your voice, I can't hear you. Fidelis, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes,
I can
Fidelis,
definitely hear you.
I'm going to give a brief about Zambia for our viewers to be able to follow us through, and then I'll get it back to you and Linda to have an insight on the human rights situation in Zambia. And of course, Fidelis, I know that you are a policy expert in this regard, and we're going to be looking at policies in your country vis-a-vis the issues of human rights in Zambia. But I will give you just a brief, not only for you, of course, for the viewers who are hearing Zambia for the first time in details. I know, of course, many people know about Zambia, but I'm going to give them an insight about Zambia today. Zambia basically has about 19 million people, close to 20 million people. My country, Uganda, has over 45 million people. And of course, Zimbabwe, my sister there, may be having a bit less than.
They're all being killed, sadly.
Now, Zambia, we are talking about Zambia today, is a very landlocked country, just like Uganda. Of course, Zambia has neighbors, including Congo, Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, and Angola. Those are neighbors who are just near you, where you could easily have a market share if you could. I know Zambia is very good at wheat production. Wheat production as one of the most production areas we have in each there. Of course, we know that Zambia has copper mines where you have lots of income going for you. And statistics shows that Zambia right now has over 54% of its population living below the poverty line. And poverty line is measured by having $1 a day. You can imagine you have almost 20 million people, but half of that population has less than $1 a day, survives on less than $1 a day. Of course, when you look at the statistics, we are saying that Zambia is a copper mining economy industry. That's where the most power that brings in money initially was. And we are looking at the wealth distribution in Zambia. Who owns what in Zambia? We look at the total private wealth in Zambia is $14 billion in private hands. And then we have wealth per capita, which is $720 wealth per capita. And when you look at the statistics from the Africa Wealth Report of last year, which was released in May 2022, we are told that in Zambia, you have 30 multi-millionaires. You have 30 multi-millionaires, and in US dollars, of course. And we have 2 centimillionaires. And of course, we have no billionaire in Zambia. And your GDP in Zambia, per that report, is 4.6% growth rate as by last year, 2022. And of course, when they segment who has wealth where, the statistics are showing that people who have wealth in Zambia are staying in Lusaka, are staying in particularly in Woodlands, Ibex Hill, Rhodes Park, and another city called Livingstone, which is the second largest city. Now, you can look at the disparity of income that the rich are having their own area where they stay, and the rest of the Mwananchi, the poor folks like Kato, stay elsewhere. The Lindas of this world stay very far away from the rich folks in Zambia. Now, the report also shows that the problem in Zambia right now is food insecurity, the biggest problem. Now, when you're going to talk about rights, one of the best rights is food. I must eat. But the report here shows that 34 districts in Zambia are right now classified as IPC Phase 3. They are in a food crisis. And 48 of the districts in Zambia are in a hotspot crisis for famine and hunger, as by March report. Now, there is a food crisis, a food insecurity in Zambia. Now, we're going to be asking the expert to find a way out. Why is this problem there? And then when we look at the staple food in Zambia is maize. In fact, the research shows that you call it nshima.
Now, in our local language, we call it nshima. Nshima. Our staple food. It's our staple food.
That's our staple food. And this is maize.
Yes,
and maize is growing so well in Zambia, but there's a problem of a food crisis because of a drought which hit you so badly in the last few years. And then we are seeing unemployment rate rising from 6.2 last year to 15% this year. Unemployment, the research shows that is rising from 6.2 last year to 15% this year. Now that is very, very worrying. And of course, the resource here I'm getting is the Food Security Information Network, and of course the World Bank and IMF records as per March this year. Now there is a food crisis in Zambia. All of us are concerned. According to Zambia Action Against Hunger, there is a serious food crisis in Zambia, whereby over 2.3 million people face severe food insecurity in Zambia. Linda, almost 3 million people have nothing to eat in Zambia. And now this is very, very worrying, because we said human rights involves food. Human rights involves employment. Honorable Saboi, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Yes, I'm happy to have you.
Welcome.
Together with my colleague,
Thank you.
Linda Tilly. We are very blessed to have you tonight. I was giving a bit of research I've made on Zambia to enable our viewers have a glimpse of what's happening in Zambia. I was talking about unemployment, which is also worsening today. I'm talking about food insecurity, which is also worsening today. And of course, I'm going to end with this on my introduction. Of course, the burden of the debt. I'll be asking the opposition leader, Honorable Saboi, and of course the expert on policy, the worsening debt crisis in Zambia. For the last 10 years, Zambia is becoming very, very, very indebted. And who is demanding money from Zambia? China, as we talk today, demands over $6.3 billion in debt of Zambia. And China has been investing in Zambia, but in terms of loans. Now, if you have a debt of over 6.3 billion worth debt from one country alone, China, and yet your total debt is $32.5 billion. $32.5 billion is the debt of Zambia as we talk today. And China alone is demanding 6.3 billion, US dollars. And now when you look at Zambia's economy, vis-a-vis the debt, Zambia is in a crisis as we talk, because China alone owns 85% of the Lusinia and Chambishi mines. This is research which you can Google and get. Now, China alone owns 85% of the mines in Chambishi and then Yuashinya. You correct me with the pronunciation. And the company is called Zhengchuan Mining Company. It also owns 51 shares in other mines that are major in Zambia. Now, when you have your economy in foreign hands, and they're talking about over 600 Chinese businesses in Zambia, as we talk, they are giving about 50,000 employment or jobs to people, but the meager payment they give and the working conditions are too terrible. Now, taking it back to Linda and taking it back to Fidelis, and of course, Honorable Saboi. having given that little background on Zambia, the economy, the debt, the worsening unemployment, the increasing food insecurity, it has begun with the Honorable in the office, NDC. Welcome, Honorable, and can we have an introduction from you?
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, and greetings to everybody who's listening to the program right now.
Greetings.
Yes. Can we have a bit of introduction?
I didn't get the question.
The viewers would like to know who is Honorable Saboi.
Well, Saboi Imboela is the person talking to you right now. I am the president of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, which is one of the opposition political parties in Zambia. You know, Zambia, when it comes to women participation in politics, we're not doing very well as a country. I think we're one of the worst in the SADC region. If you look at our parliament, right now our parliament only has about 13% are women, which is even worse than our last parliament. Imagine, we had our elections, the last elections in 2016, and by then we had about 16% women in parliament. Right now we only have 13% women in parliament. So from a number of 156 parliamentarians, only 20 are women. So that's how bad it is. And for a very long time, we had only one political party that was run by a woman. But right now we've got 3 political parties that are run by women. And I'm fortunate enough to be one of those women that are running a political party. And I think Fidelis might have said it before I joined the program. Politics in Zambia are not easy. You know, human rights record right now, as our topic for today, the human rights record in Zambia is not okay at the moment. And as women, we have not been spared. You know, so you find that the brunt of our politics that has really been affecting the men all this time. Right now, it's us, the women, that are facing that, because the fact that we do have this a non-proportional representation in terms of our electoral system, we have this winner takes all and them and us kind of a politics. So normally the ruling party really violates the rights of the political opponents, and that is opposition in this case. So as women also we're facing that quite a lot. So it's really a sad situation, but we're very happy that we're representing our women, and I hope that we're representing them well enough, if not very well, you know, so that in future we do have as many women as possible joining our politics.
I'm so happy, and of course I know my co-host is very happy to have a lady leading a political party in Africa. That is big news.
It's wonderful. I think you guys are doing really well at 13%. That's amazing. It's lovely to have you on the show. My family my mother was 6th generation born in Zambia, and I was born in Zimbabwe. So I've always had, I think my mother was raised, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, amongst the women of Zambia. And a lot of my values in life and the way things that I was taught and morals are very much based in Zambian women and the way that things were done there. And I know the women in your country have always been particularly strong and outspoken, even during the independence struggle for our liberation in the respective countries of Zambia and Zimbabwe. A lot of female leaders, and you know, we had those horrific, it's coming up to the anniversary in October, the bombings of the camps in Zambia by the White Rhodesian Air Force and the Sulu Scouts, which are made up to be heroes, but they were actually mercenary killers who just, you know, there were lots of Zambian and Zimbabwean women that kind of, their men were fighting for liberation, and the women did their part as well. You know, they did what they could. They were training to be customs officers and police and that, and they were all in these camps with their children, and they were killed in the most horrific way. I do write about it every year because things like this, they can get so easily forgotten in our history. But the women of Zambia have always been very resilient and very strong. And I see even now with your youth activists that speak out about issues with your mining and, you know, the pollution from mining and that, You're a very active, outspoken country of people. And I myself have been quite horrified these last 2 to 3 years, seeing from the outside looking in how things are deteriorating there with your human rights. I've seen so much more police and abuse of citizens where they are acting completely out of line, illegal arrests, people languishing in prison on arbitrary charges, a very slow court system and overcrowded prisons. And I've been quite shocked because you have always been considered to be one of our stable countries that in Southern Africa we look up to. As Zambia is always doing okay, and things just seem to have gone haywire these last 3 years. But the difference with you at other countries is that you're not an oppressed people, so you speak out and everybody is up in arms about what's happening, and you're not sitting back and taking it, which I think is wonderful. And I also think that we on the outside in other countries, we need to support you as well with your campaigns and your awareness.
Linda, just a minute.
It's very important.
Lungu, Mr. Lungu, your camera is off. You are in the studio, but your camera is off. May you please switch on your camera, Mr. Lungu, if you can.
I'm actually wondering, because my camera is very much on, I'm wondering why you can't see me.
Yeah, something is going astray. My admin tells me your camera is off.
Oh, now we've all gone into darkness.
But we can hear.
There we go.
Of course, technology. We are going to be excused. We don't own this technology. Now, back to Honorable Saboi. I will start with you as a head of a political party, and I have to give you all the honors that you're a lady. In Africa, it's very, very rare to find ladies heading political parties. I come from Uganda. Personally, I'm a leader in a political party. I'm a legal director. The party is called People's Progressive Party, but we have never been led by a lady. So I must give you all the flowers for taking the initiative to be at the forefront of leading a political party in Africa, and more so in Zambia. Now, my question to you, Honorable Saboi, is what are the challenges in terms of human rights that women in particular are facing in Zambia today?
I heard everything else apart from the question at the very end. Can you please repeat the question?
I will. I'm asking the challenges women are facing in Zambia, because when I look at the stat, you are having 10 million women vis-a-vis alongside 9 million men.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So in terms of the challenges, as I think I'll categorize them in about maybe, let's say, 4 or 5 reasons. I think number one, I would say cultural reasons. Our culture and traditions. They look at women as the followers of men. So to speak. The funny thing is that a long time ago, you find that most of even our historical or a traditional leadership were led by women. I come from the western part of Zambia, from a tribe called the Lozes. We have a king there called the Litunga. People may not even know that the first Litunga was a woman. The first Litunga and the 16th Litunga. Yes, but right now, try to suggest that the next Litunga should be a woman. People think that you're mad. Because that's how it has been over the years. In many places in the country, find that where we had women leadership, the men took over, and when they did that, they could not give back the power to the women. Right now, I live in Lusaka, the capital city of Zambia. We do have a traditional leader here, Komesha, who's a woman. So here, at least we are lucky that has continued over the years. So when you look at these places where you find that the men are the leaders, you find that naturally people feel that leadership is for men. So cultural, traditional reasons, I think that really disadvantages the women. The other reason I'll take it to religious reasons. We have this verse in the Bible which says that a woman should submit in fact, a wife should submit to the husband. That is one of the most misrepresented and misunderstood scriptures in the Bible. People think that every woman out there should submit to every man out there. So these are the things whereby even when we talk to women to join politics and be active and be leaders, we tell them to say, we are Christians, and yes, we believe that a woman should submit, and the Bible says a man first of all should love the wife and the wife should submit. Those are religious things. But in terms of submission, it's not about a woman submitting to every man out there. You go to your office, what you submit there are your qualifications. Your experience is what submits to the other. Not to find that maybe a woman is more qualified, but she gets into the office, she's expected to start making tea for everybody else because she's a woman. When we go for campaigns, for example, you'd find that maybe you leave Lusaka, you go to another province, the women there would naturally go to the kitchen. And these are people that have moved from one province to the other. Instead of going out in the field to campaign, they'll go straight to the kitchen. For me, in my political party, I like to tell them to say, we have come here to campaign. Everybody's going to go in the field and campaign. In terms of cooking, we're going to be changing. Today, the men cook. Today, the women cook. Today, so that's what we normally do, So when it comes to leadership and everything, it comes from those most small things. Sometimes we have workshops with the women, and then we ask them to say, what are the roles of the women in terms of your women's wings and everything? To be the women themselves will be telling you the roles are to dance, to receive the president, to do whatever. And then you have to tell them, no, your role is to ensure that you include as many women as possible in all these political party positions and everything. So that to me comes in from the religious point of view as well, whereby people just think submission is about a woman being the second-class citizen. Resources to me is one of the biggest challenges. In Zambia, elections, politics are very expensive. We had an opportunity to travel to Rwanda once, and we asked the women there, the women parliamentarians, to say, who funds your elections? And they told us, politics in Rwanda, elections are very cheap. Anyone can just stand and become an MP. So we don't need to really have a lot of money. In terms of funding, in terms of whatever, everything is cheap, and also they've highly criminalized corruption during elections. So we're very impressed with that, because in Zambia, Fidelis will tell you this. First of all, within the political party, when you have your intra-party elections, you have to pay so much. Some political parties, just for you to stand, you have to pay a non-refundable fee of about 5,000 kwacha. So you do that. Then the Electoral Commission of Zambia, you pay, if you're a man, you pay 15,000 kwacha. A woman, you pay 13,500. A youth and a person with a disability, you pay 10,000 kwacha. All those fees are very high. Then you go into the communities, they have highly commercialized before they vote for you. So all these things are things that have really destroyed our politics, and that becomes a huge challenge for the women, because like they say, poverty has a female face, so most of the poverty in Zambia, just like in most parts of Africa, you find that the women that are highly affected. So that is very sad, and one of the biggest challenges that we have. If you look at even political parties, by the way, apart from the international funding that political parties normally have, you do have local funders, the businessmen that fund and everything. And we have noticed that these funders would rather fund political parties led by men and not by women.
Yes, we got you properly. Of course, there are network issues. Linda, can you hear me? And Fidelis?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Honorable Saboi was really on track, and we enjoyed everything she said, of course, about the challenges women are facing. Now, from the policy point of view, Mr. Fidelis, what is the policy say about politics and gender in Zambia? Is there any specific policy to cater for gender imbalances? Because we have seen we have only 20 women in parliament. What are political issues there we can talk about?
Good afternoon, the rest of Africa and the rest of the world, and good afternoon, Linda, and afternoon, comrade.
Absolutely.
For me, I think when you look at our policies for specifically when it comes to women, especially in politics in Zambia, it's a sad story to say so, because our politics are not friendly for our women from the inception. Actually, when you follow the history of our country, you realize that from 1964, the first cabinet, there was no woman in that cabinet. So over the years, Zambia has been trying to implement the United Nations on the gender equality, 50% of women representation. Unfortunately, corruption one of the first hindrance when it comes to women participation, especially in Zambia. Because at political level party, there is what we call inter-party democracy, that political parties do go through preliminary process for them to be adopted. They have to bribe party officials. They have to be insulted. Now that we have social media, there are others who use scandalize, use character assassination. So to that has put off women that have acquired the level of education that can contribute greatly to democracy in Zambia, because they tend to stay away because of describing politics as a bit them as a what. But when you look at the policies over the last years, you look at the policies over the last years, I would tell you to inform you to say that we were doing well. We were doing well as a country in terms of women participation. In the last government, under President Lungu, under President Manawasa, under President Lupia Banda, under President FTJ. Actually, in President FTJ, women started having participation because that's when Zambia returned back from one-party state to multi-party democracy. Now, when you talk about issues to participation of when you look at the current administration, the current members of parliament in the current August House of the Republic of Zambia, it's a sad story.
Mr. Fidelis, there is a feedback. Yes, a feedback from your mic.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's okay. Let us continue, please.
Okay, so I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so you realize to say that when it comes to policies for women in Zambia, when you look at the August House or the current parliament, actually it's a sad story, because you look at even the cabinet appointments, the levels of our appointees. I'm sure there are only 4 women in cabinet, which makes us wonder to say, is the current administration, do they believe in gender policy? Do they believe that women also are not to be kitchen dwellers, but are supposed to be policy decision makers, to be part and parcel as we drive to transform our country into what we desire to be? As Madam Saboi has alluded to it, one of the issues that is hindering women, especially in my country, Zambia, and I'm sure it's a global thing. Women are not united as the youth can be. Women need to speak one voice. Women need to stand for each other. But you find that politicians take advantage, especially men. They will take advantage to separate the women by funding the other group, scandalize the other camp, just like that. So when you tend to do that, now that it affects policy direction, because when you look at donors would not want to invest in a country where gender issues are not taken as a priority, because they are a priority, because the world without mothers is a dead world. We need our mothers in every section. Even I'll give example, even in the Catholic Church, in my church, we have the nuns, we have now sisters now who are also taking part in the vocation. Others are teachers, others are working as. So you mean that we need women. Women play an important role in transforming society into a better environment for our children and future generations. Now, because once we are ruled by men, if the majority becomes men were known to have authoritarian behavior. We are not tolerant. Women are like mothers. Even as they debate, you have seen our sister's been debating in parliament. I saw the clip that you had showed where she was talking. It is those are the women, like, we want more women who can voice out, who can talk, who cannot be bulldozed by men, who can stand on there and protect on their rights. Again, what has been clearly killing our country in terms of Zambia, because I am saying Zambia because I am worried because it seems the women participation, especially the non-governmental organizations, these are institutions that are supposed to advocate for women appointment, for women gender policy implementation. But once these institutions are compromised, those that are looked to be our leaders are given jobs or silenced or they fear, then you just know that society is a dying society. It's a society without a future. Because you look at the high standard of morals in our country today, you talk about women participation, you talk about the governance, you talk about, yes, in the banking sector, in politics, we as a country, we are not doing fine. In the other sectors, you talk about the banking sectors, you talk about the agriculture sector, you talk about agriculture sector, our women so far are doing fine. There's Z farmer, there's actually there's also the young farmer, women, ladies who are multi-millionaire farmers who have refused to say we can't just be told that we're women. We must take part and participate in what is good for us and that. So we want to see that same spirit to be included even in our governance, because once we have numbers of women in parliament, because the Zambian system governance is designed that parliament plays an important role in policy formulation, because policy formulation are taken to parliament, which is the final body, which now the president already sets his signature. So once you have a group of old madalas, old god, may I call them grandpapas? Yes, we are not saying that we don't need them. No, there is no village without elders, but our elders must learn to understand that sometimes they must pave way and begin to groom young ones and provide. That's the leadership that we aspire to see in a country. So.
Yes, that's very important, Mr. Fidelis. Thank you so much for that. Linda is back, of course. Now, Honorable Saboi, if you can hear me, I'll ask this question to you. Of course, I'll be asking the same question to Honorable Fidelis. Fidelis, the challenges we see on paper for us outside looking in Zambia, one thing is so true, that there is state torture, there is a state-inspired violence today in Zambia, according to the Human Rights Report, Human Rights Watch report of last year. We are seeing also a lot of unlawful arbitrary killings, including extrajudicial killings in Zambia. And then this president is just 2 years in office, and he was an opposition figure for some time, but we are seeing the reports on human rights. Issues are going the other way. We are also seeing increased numbers of child abuse and, of course, human trafficking. People from Zambia being trafficked away to other countries. We are seeing violence against women. We are seeing serious restrictions on freedom of expression and media in Zambia. And, of course, reports on forced labor and child labor, including restrictions on labor rights. Now, all these are threatening conditions that hamper human rights development. Of course, there's harsh and life-threatening prisons conditions in Zambia. They are talking about prisons which are so filthy in Zambia. This question goes to the two of you, the opposition leader in Zambia, Honorable Saboi, and of course, you are the policy expert. What is happening in Zambia in terms of human rights deterioration? As per what I've read from Human Rights Watch, what are your observations as a policy expert? What went wrong in Zambia today?
I think I'm trying to look for the human rights report. I think that history is coming from the United Nations U.S. State Department report of 2022.
Exactly, that's true.
They were, because they caught us unaware actually, because we didn't see that report because due to our busy schedule, a friend of mine, a journalist from the CNN, had forwarded me that report to say this is a report for your country. So they talked about Zambia as a constitutional republic governed by the constitutionally democratically elected president and an economical national assembly. So in August, the country held its elections, and the President Hichilema, president of Zambia, in October, made his first maiden speech at the United Nations General Conference, where he reaffirmed the commitment and that the restoration of the rule of law and the respect for human rights. So you realize to say that that President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, the previous regime administration, was accused that there were intolerance, there were levels of vandalism had reached an extent where the country was alarming. So Mr. President Hichilema himself had this to say, because he made an inspiration speech which even attracted the United States President to appreciate and comment Zambia, that the people of Zambia voted their democracy and their voice was respected. Now, it is so shocking and so disturbing that within 2 years of the administration of His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema, that that his administration can be classified by the United States itself in their own preliminary report as turning out into be an authoritarian administration, lack of tolerance, severity, extrajudicial killings of political opponents. They know what they were doing. The list of journalists, the KBN studio, the political advisor of the president. I don't know if it is him in the audio which went secreted of planning to remove Hari Kalaba from the GP part, which I'm sure he left. All those were in the US report are raised concerns, and especially the police cruel torture and inhuman degrading treatment punishment by the police, whom they have accused that they are the police of Zambia, like getting instructions from political party cadres to arrest the critics of the administration. Now, from my institution where I come from, the Institute for Public Policy Research, we did look at that report, and we compared to our own report, and we found that the US report, actually, we agreed with it, that they didn't miss anything. They never left anything. Whatever they mentioned, a number of civil society organizations were quoted in that report. Despite the government having refused that report, that the US would have engaged them. But because today we live in a digital world, in a global world where there's social media, you see when somebody's being arrested, people go on social media, is being mistreated. There are other video clips actually that were so disturbing when the members of the ruling party had taken the law into their own hands by started beating suspected citizens who may not agree with the policies of the current regime. So to that, it's really angered us. Then not only from that, again, the latest United Nations report, it also raises concerns about the human rights abuses in Zambia, and they are worried because it's only 2 years since President Islema took over office as President of the Republic of Zambia. Was elected based on the rule of law, respect for human rights, the fight against corruption, restoring the economy of the Republic of Zambia, and giving Zambia the freedoms that they are supposed to enjoy in their free time, actually. But all this seems to be threatened because there seems to be a problem somewhere within the state police at the headquarters in Lusaka here, and there seems to be a problem again at State House of the Police Command. So it seems that the other police is giving other instructions, the other one is condemning, because the immediate IG of Mr. Lemika Jova, who was removed from his duties by President Chilema. The moment he was removed, the United States ambassador had congratulated President Chilema to said you had made the right decision by firing Mr. Lemika as IG. Now, when you look at the current situation with the current IG that we have, you'll be sorry to say that we find that you agree that maybe Mr. Lemika was okay, because the current one, under his administration, we have seen the West, we have seen where the Inspector General of Police, who of all the people, is not a minister, is not a DC who can make political comments. He's an IG. His duty is to enforce the law and to make sure that there is law and order. So to hear the Inspector General of Police issuing political statements threatening opposition leaders exercising their democratic right to express concerns on what is going on in Zambia, at least must be desired, and that's disappointment to some of us. And that is why, as a policy expert myself, we have been clear to say, advocating that we must amend these institutions of giving too much powers to the president, because the current IG was retired, I think, in 2012, when he was retired. So you look at the lapse of years that have lapsed, the years that have lapsed, quite a number. The systems have changed. The police syllabus seems to have updated. Now, what we have been seeing, arresting members of opposition parties on expressing, not taking them to court, and taking them to far away police. I'll give an example in the capital Lusaka, where you take somebody to another district, Bamola. Those were colonial tactics that they used to oppress our freedom fighters, to isolate them from the will of their families. So to see that behavior, that experience that our forefathers saw in, I would say, 60 years ago when we were fighting for liberation struggle. It's a sad story, especially that we're living in a modern world. And how do we treat a fellow human being? And how do you go to bed to even sleep knowing that you have just differed? Presidents or state power must never be used to oppress opponents. It must be used to better the lives of our people. That is what the Zambian people woke up on 12 August, early in the morning, to remove the last regime that was there and to put Mr. Ichilema as president of the Republic of Zambia, because they had hope that he was going to be a Democrat and going to do better. I have given him a second chance, especially looking at the issues to do with human rights. I know that Mr. Ichilema has never been a civil servant before, but he has worked. He has worked for various institutions actually over the highest level. And looking at him, we expect that the police are not helping the president. Some of us, we have been clear that the police seem to be campaigning, seem to be painting the bad image of His Excellency the President at international level, because he is not the IG, the president. So his policy is clear. He addressed the country to say there must be law of law. And it is those law enforcement agencies themselves who are supposed to execute, to implement the legal procedure by following what is laid down. Somebody must be arrested. President Ichilema in 2022, he addressed Parliament and he reaffirmed his commitment to say he doesn't want to see people to spend 2 days in cells. If the case is a bondable, is variable, people must be given bond. People, if there's no, he has told the police several times, law enforcement agencies. So we wonder when we say the president in the public says this, but his appointees, they do opposite exactly, which has left some of us who, because we as the civil society organizations as well, from where we come, we are also stakeholders. We are stakeholders in better in our country into what we want it to be. So it's a concern for some of us that even the latest Amnesty International report has actually, it has actually gone west to saying that the human rights situation in Zambia is keep deteriorating. It's not improving actually. It's becoming worse actually, because the abuse.
To interject a little bit there, Mr. Fidelis, the report I first quoted is the U.S. Country Report on Human Rights Practices, which was 2021, but also the same information is given in 2022 and the latest one in 2023. So it's bizarre. And I should also ask you, what's going on between former President Lungu Edgar and Ichilema, because I saw recently that Lungu was refused from travel. So I wonder if there is a bit of respect or disrespect, because I can see that past presidents like Chuba, Mwanawasa, Rupia Banda, Michael Sata, Guy Scott, I think they were a bit respected, apart from Kaunda, who was a bit mistreated. What's happening? What's the problem between Edgar, Lungu, and Ichilema? Because the rights of Lungu appears to be curtailed at the moment.
So thank you very much for that for that question. I think some of us we have just been observing from the terraces, but the issue here is that there seems to be a problem in our country. Mr. Ichilema believes that when he was in opposition, President Lungu mistreated him, which is the state system. But in accordance with our law is that any opposition leader in our country will not be given a status of a VIP. An opposition leader is not in America or where, in South Africa. So the difference here is that Mr. Lungu is now a former president of the Republic of Zambia, and the concern of Zambia, it talks about presidential benefits, how a president is supposed to be taken care of, he must be given what. The government pays for his rent, if they have to build a house, he has to go with the bodyguards, if a motorcade, if a few vehicles and some security personnel, and then office must be opened in Lusaka for the 60th presidency, where people can, if you feel yourself, if you come, ourselves can go and seek concession. So the current administration has actually debated that Mr. Lungu is in active politics because he has refused to relinquish the position as a Patriotic Front Party president, which the political analysts here in Zambia and other members of the ruling party and government officials believe that Mr. Lungu's involvement is still in active politics, and the constitution itself, the act actually itself, does not allow a former president to be active in politics unless they want to lose their benefits and their what. But despite all that, Mr. Lungu is a human being who his human rights must be respected and he must be accorded that. Yes, he's a former president of the Republic of Zambia. He's traveling out of the country. Number one, is traveling out of the country. Yes, the state have every right to know where Mr. Lungu is going, because he is a former president of the Republic of Zambia. In short, he is also in America. They say that it's an institution, because the former president is an institution, because he knows a lot of state secrets, he knows a lot of things about our country. So the government is right to ask, to say they were right, but they have no right to stop him from traveling. But they have every right to question where Mr. Lungu is going, but they have no right. They have no right to stop him from traveling. They have no right to initiate.
Fidelis, I'm going to invite
Come
my
again.
co-host Linda. I'm going to pause you a little bit there. I'm going to
Okay.
My co-host Linda is going to take on, but in the meantime, Mr.
Lungu, I've seen Mr. Lungu.
Solomon, yes, you are here, because I was wondering why the camera was off. I'm happy to see you, Mr. Solomon
Lungu, Mr. Lungu is Luckson Lungu.
That's Mr. Luckson Lungu he's the Gears Board Chairman. Welcome to the show.
Can you hear us, please? Can you hear us? Mr. Luckson Lungu, can you hear us?
Yes.
Because I can see you.
I hope you are here.
Yes, you are so welcome. We are sorry for the power hiccups you have got and interruptions you have got. We are happy to have you on set. May you please take our viewers through who is Mr. Luckson?
I can clearly hear you.
Yes. Can you give us a bit of introduction about yourself? Mr. Luckson Lungu, can you hear us? Okay, back to Linda. Linda, now the floor is yours as my co-host. Of course, you are a part of Zambia. Your mother is from Zambia, and here we are talking about Zambian matters. So let us hear from you as you moderate going forward.
Thanks, Kacha. Well, like I mentioned earlier, I've noticed human rights abuses have really been increasing in Zambia. I'm very concerned about the heavy-handedness of the police that are acting outside the law, because we know we have issues in a lot of our countries with this. And also what I've noticed with, the latest with Chema's rule, I've noticed from in the media, he promises a lot of things and then he doesn't live up to them. I think he was even promising some things when he was campaigning that never came about in the end, that people are still waiting for. I can't remember. I think it was to do with the fact that so many people are arbitrarily detained and arrested in Zambia. The prisons are overflowing. Zambia is known to have some of the worst prison conditions in Africa, which is really saying something, because we all know what our prison states are like here. And I think that it was something to do with what Fidelis was saying just now, that he was going to ensure that nobody languished in prison, as he had done for however long, and he was going to make sure that system was moving quickly. I haven't seen anything change in Zambia as far as that's concerned in these couple of years that he's been the president. And then also I saw, I think with the policy, with all the pollution in some of the mines with the lead, the runoff is causing horrific problems to the people of Zambia, to children, young children that are getting all sorts of health issues because of this. And these were Anglo-American, British colonial-owned mines. I mean, you know, the UK should be held responsible for that. The mines were not cleaned up when they were closed. He also had a very strong green policy that he was going to be implementing for that, which he spoke about, which I also haven't really seen anything happen. Fidelis, I don't know, you can maybe just fill me in whether I'm wrong here, but I also do remember that his green policy, it's like so many of our presidents, you know, when they're campaigning, they say all the right things, they talk the talk, but when it comes to actually walking the walk, they fall short. And then basically they're elected into power, and people have voted for them, a lot of people, because of the things they promised to change in the country, and then nothing is done. So that is very concerning for me, because, you know, maybe one policy or something, you know, things were, it's, you could say it's due to certain circumstances and things, but I'm seeing it time and time again with major things that he is assuring the people he's going to do, and then he just sits back and nothing is done. So I don't know, Fidelis, if I'm correct in what my assumption there, but there definitely seems to have been a lot of promises made to the people of Zambia that have not been, nothing has been actioned on those yet.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you.
There's also a very strict NGO policy, which I actually wasn't really aware of, because I'm not aware of it in any of our other countries. And Kato, I don't know if you, it's the law, there's a law, it is the NGO Act number 16 of 2009, which actually restricts NGOs from operating as independent organizations. They have to report to a, and the civil societies groups as well. There's like a government regulatory board that oversees the NGOs, and I've never heard of this anywhere in Africa before. Look, we know in countries like Uganda, there's a lot of pressure from the government. If you know, don't want you to register, they'll give you trouble in that. But this is also, which is restricting the NGOs, which are the ones going out there and doing,
Linda, I should tell you, just a little bit to come in, that Uganda has terrible laws restricting NGOs' operation as we speak.
Really?
Right
okay.
now,
So
over 60 NGOs were suspended about 2 years ago. They can't operate in Uganda. Many of the NGO actors have gone into exile in Uganda right now. Nicholas Opi, one of the popular lawyers, was arrested of an NGO called Chapter 4 Uganda. So Uganda is in a mess. In fact, Zambia may be even okay, because in Uganda, our NGOs have been restricted, including my NGO. They have been restricted. We cannot operate the way we used to operate, because remember, even with the law against human rights, of course, against the disadvantaged community and all that, if you're an NGO which gives them the right to speak, you are a target. So Uganda is the worst case scenario here. So
same with the LGBT community, I know.
Yeah,
in Uganda, they close down any. Yeah.
So restrictions of NGOs are in Uganda as I speak. And now in Zambia, I've had a bit of restrictions, but in Uganda, so it's getting worse.
It's getting worse. So now the thing is that if we can see history repeating in another country, that's what I've said with so much of what I've seen happening in Zambia. It's already happened in a lot of our other countries. And the Zambians are shocked. They're aware of what's going on, and they're on top of it, which is also good that we collaborate in other countries and help, because you know how your NGO law in Uganda has deteriorated over the years. It's the same as the laws they started bringing into our countries to restrict us on social media, computer misuse acts and that kind of thing. And we're slowly starting to see it now in Zambia as well, where journalists, whereas before it was only perhaps just your journalists and very outspoken writers that were being harassed, it's now your bloggers, your social media people, I mean, when I do posts on Zambia, I don't even tag Fidelis and Zambian friends in them, because I'm just afraid that if my posts appear on their Facebook walls, you know, they could get cautioned, or all their accounts are being watched. And that is not the Zambia.
Linda, we can't hear you. Your voice has been interrupted. I can't hear you, Linda. I can't hear you, Linda. Fidelis, back to you.
Can I come in at this point, please?
Yeah, please come in, Fidelis. Back to you.
Can I come in at this point, please?
Yes,
Mr. Lungu
come
here.
in. Go ahead.
That's Mr. Lungu.
Lungu.
Yes, please.
Mr. Lungu wants to come in.
Yes, thank you.
Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, moderator. Sorry for not being able to view my video on the camera, but I'm sure you are able to hear what I'm talking about.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. So we are talking about the human rights situation in Zambia. And I want to bring out the facts here, which you are going to verify as you, do your research and things like that.
Yes.
I'm talking about a nation here, Zambia, which is a towering example of democracy. I am sure that most of you have heard about how Zambia is described in Africa as one of the countries with a growing democracy. We may not be at that stage, but we are a democracy that actually allows the participation of citizens. This is a country where the citizens have managed to change governments 4 times now, from UNIP to MMD, from MMD to Patriotic Front, from Patriotic Front to UPND. This is the Zambia we are talking about. That is only possible through the participation of citizens. Mind you, enjoyment of human rights is only possible in a democracy. Democracy promotes massive participation of citizens. If citizens are not given an opportunity to participate, we can't talk about democracy. I'm talking about a country where citizens have effectively participated in changing governments, where citizens have effectively participated in taking part in whatever is supposed to happen. Without the enjoyment of rights, we can't talk about democracy. Without the enjoyment of rights, we can't talk about the rule of law. Without democracy, we can't talk about citizens going on with their activities. Freedom of expression, for instance. If there are things that led this country to change governments, it is because of abuse of human rights. There was massive abuse of human rights previously, and that is what made citizens to decide to change governments. And when governments were changed, citizens have been having expectations. We as civil society organizations are having expectations. What improvement are we going to see now that we changed governments from a situation where the media houses were being closed? Now that we have changed governments from a situation where the political party leaders were being arrested, a situation where as citizens would not freely express themselves, a situation where other members of society could not wear party regalia for their political parties. We are talking about a situation where this is no longer there. You can verify on your own now that members of the public can wear any political party regalia anywhere and no one is going to harass anyone. Those are some of the improvements. The media houses, some of which were closed, have since been opened. That is the country that we are talking about. We are talking about a country where there has been the government systematically decided to remove the death penalty from the penal code as a way of promoting human rights. We are talking about a country where civil society organizations like ours, like the one my brother Fidelis belongs to, exist freely without any restriction. I'm talking about a country where political parties like the one Ms Saboi Imboela comes from are existing freely in this particular country. That's the Zambia I'm talking about. I'm talking about a Zambia where members of the opposition are going around the country presenting their ideas and ideals. They are free to do that. Just a few days ago, I was impressed when I saw an opposition official going around in one of our our constituencies, our townships, literally talking to people. Look at those videos that you shared at first. Those videos are simply indicating that the opposition, that the members of the public in Zambia are free to express themselves. That is the Zambia. However, I must be quick to mention that there are areas that need improvement. Indeed, I agree that in as much as we are making these progressive movements in terms of democratization and the like, there are also areas that really needs improvement in our governance situation in this country. Like, for instance, I don't agree with the detaining of suspects for more than 48 hours. That is wrong. We have seen some officials, some people who get arrested and are detained more than what is necessary. That we condemn in the strongest sense. It is not an appropriate thing. It is not good. People must be detained, provided with bond within the stipulated time, without holding them for a longer period than what is necessary. That we have to work on it. I also want to also mention that within our country, we must work on the adoption, or is it broadening, of the human rights spectrum in terms of the inclusion of the economic, social, and cultural rights. And I should mention that this can only happen if we go ahead and hold a referendum. We in the civil society organizations have been calling on the government to say, can we please hold this referendum, which was held in order for us to bring it to include the economic, social, and cultural rights in our constitution. However, that referendum failed for obvious reasons. A referendum was held alongside an election, so we couldn't manage. But we still push that we need to hold that referendum so that economic, social, and cultural rights are included in the Zambian constitution. That is what we are pushing for. And I also want to agree on the issue of women representation. Women representation is prohibitively low in this country. And I'm one of the people that, and our organization is one of those organizations that are pushing an agenda to improve the representation of women. It is very, very low in terms of political participation. Women, we need to bring in legislation, some form of legislation that will promote the participation of women in politics. So in as much as we are making improvement in some areas, I know that there are areas that indeed as a country we need to make improvement. That is what we are talking about. So we cannot say Zambia is actually heading or going backwards in terms of implementation of human rights. I can say there, in as much as we are making improvements in certain areas, there are other areas that certainly needs improvement, like the ones that I've talked about. That is what we should be talking about in this particular discussion. I really want to thank you for that.
Mr. Luckson, that was a very good one. I must thank you so much because it was really well articulated and very balanced. Thank you so much for that. Mr. Luckson, I have a question for you.
Yes, please.
You coming from the civil society sector, of course, you have given us a rosy picture of it, but of course, you have given us the thorny part of it. Can we say that over and above, the civil society in Zambia are having it all good? Everything seems to be moving on well with the new President Ichilima. There are no restrictions for the civil society in Zambia today?
So thank you very much. And you have asked me a very important question. I really appreciate that. First of all, let me indicate that we as civil society organizations, several of our civil society organizations sought an audience with the president. I can attest to say civil society organizations met with the president, trying to present our desires and what we want to see in this particular country. Do you realize that we are in Zambia? We have citizens who have been calling on civil society organizations, demanding that can you push on government because they are very slow in terms of prosecuting corruption cases. This is how far we've gone. People are calling on the civil society organizations, say, can government speed up the process of prosecuting corrupt-related cases? So the space is open for civil society organizations. What we as civil society organizations actually should be looking at right now is to what extent is this government not helping in the implementation or promotion of human rights. That is what we focus on. Areas that needs improvement, and those are the ones I talked about. But by and large, there is a space there's enough space for civil society organizations to operate in this particular country. I'm very sure that my panelists or fellow panelists here who agree with me that there is no civil society organization that has been banned. If you are to compare with the happenings in Uganda, as you referred, that doesn't happen in our country. We are not in that country. We are in a country where freedoms are enhanced in this.
That's a good one. Mr. Lungu,
Yes.
Mr. Lungu, last one before I hand you over to my co-host Linda Tilly in South Africa. I want to ask you something very pertinent because
Yes,
I've been
please.
following the trend in Zambia for the last 2 years. I have
Yes.
seen homosexuals being killed on the streets, some of them in their own houses. And I've seen the international community in uproar against the act. Of course, people are so volatile in Zambia when it comes to homosexuals. Now, as a person in the civil society sector, where do you place their rights? How do you, what do you say about it as someone in the civil society sector right now?
So thank you so very much. Now, we as civil society organizations are existing in Zambia and are very, very sensitive to the desires and the wishes of the Zambian people. One of the most important things we ought to do as citizens is to look at what is it that the citizens of Zambia would want to see most. Zambia is a country which was declared a Christian nation. Purposively, it's constitutional, by the way. We are constitutionally a Christian nation.
That's true.
I don't want to say we are homophobic, but what I want to say is that as a country, we are actually a country that does not simply agree with the people that maybe with a law that would promote homosexuality in the country. We wouldn't want to do that. I think as civil society organizations, we wouldn't want to be in the forefront of pushing an agenda which we know most of the citizens in Zambia would not like to see. So we as a country, as civil society organizations, know very well what Zambians want. We know very well what Zambians would desire, and as such, we would not be would not be part and parcel of people pushing an agenda for the promotion of homosexuality.
Mr. Lungu, we are talking about people being lynched. I've watched videos. I would have shown them to you here. I've watched videos of people in Zambia lynching homosexuals. Do they have rights in your country?
No, that is a crime. Remember, when you talk about human rights apply to everyone, regardless of who they are. And as such, if you talk about someone being lynched, someone being killed, that in itself is a crime. That's one thing you should be mindful of. So there is no law that says when someone is found to be practicing or to be involved, they should be lynched. They should be no. In fact, I should also indicate that it is an illegality as it stands now for anyone to involve themselves in homosexuality in our country. It is an illegality. But it doesn't mean that citizens would start lynching, killing, or beating up those. That is a crime in itself. Because if someone is involved in an illegality, we have laws, we have appropriate legal systems and legal procedures that have to be followed in order to make sure that a person who is suspected to have committed a crime is supposed to be taken before the appropriate legal procedures. So there's nothing like people lynching and killing others and then nothing happens to them. That is a crime. And I would assure you that if such things do happen, then the perpetrators of such a crime are the ones who should be looked at. No one can be allowed to lynch or kill or beat anyone without facing the law.
Mr. Lungu, finally from me, is there a statement from the NGO sector to that effect, that don't lynch people, respect their rights?
That we are supposed to lynch? No. We can't lynch people because of their life.
Condemning the lynching of people because of their orientation.
The law itself in Zambia does not allow.
No. What we have is we condemn the involvement of people in homosexuality.
How about the
I want you to take note of that. No, in Zambia we don't. In Zambia, no. I want to be very categorical here, please. In Zambia, we don't have a law that promotes lesbian rights or homosexual rights or LGBTQ rights. We don't have that. So in short, what I'm simply trying to say is what we in the civil society organizations have done is to condemn any form of people trying to show or express themselves as being homosexuals. We are not a country that promotes that. So that is what I would do. I would want to emphasize at this particular point.
So the civil society sector is condemning people who are gay, but it's not condemning people lynching them.
I indicated. Remember, I said, if anyone has been lynched or killed, those people who have lynched or killed anyone must have been reported before the law enforcement. Lynching of anyone, lynching of anyone, whether this person is a suspected homosexual, killing of anyone, whether this person is a suspected homosexual, is a crime in its own. That is people carrying the law in their own hands. Citizens are not supposed to carry the law in their own hands. So any lynching is condemned. Any killing is condemned of people who enjoy their own right. That's what I want to say.
Mr. Lungu, away from that, we have talked a lot about homosexuals now. Away from that, I want to talk about rights of children who are being seen in forced labor. And of course, the wage policy, the wage laws in Zambia, where people working in mines are discriminated, where expatriates who are from other countries are paid lots of money, and people working in mines are paid peanuts in Zambia. What does the civil society talk about that? The wage policy, the payments vis-a-vis the expatriates and what the locals are getting, what the women are getting, children being employed, child labor, but also human trafficking. What are you doing as the civil society in Zambia to condemn, to reduce the impact of those vices in Zambia?
Thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate that very wonderful question. Now, number one, child labor is not allowed in Zambia. Okay, no one is allowed to employ a child. And we have what is known as the Children's Act. In this country, we have an act, Children's Act number 12 of 2022. This is a law that was recently passed in order to protect the rights of children. So there is no law that promotes that children must be engaged in any form of employment in terms of child labor. So children are not supposed to be in any form of child labor. As such, every child, any person who is or discovered to have employed a child is actually going against the law in Zambia, because it's not allowed to employ children. So as civil society organizations, we would be in the forefront if we discovered any company, any individual employing children who should be in school, employing children who should be undergoing the care. We will be in the forefront condemning such things, because we don't allow that. There's a law in place. There is a law. Talking about the minimum wage, I should indicate that through the push of the civil society organizations, recently, the Minister of Community Development, where labor matters for, has actually issued a statement that government is actually looking into the areas of improving the minimum wage. I agree with you that wages of people in Zambia, especially those that are doing works, certain jobs that require that they get protected, are low, and they need more care. We agree on that particular aspect. And as civil society organizations, we can't sit down and see people getting wages that are unsustainable. We can't sit down. We will be amongst those that will push, and we are amongst those that keep on asking government to improve through. And by the way, let me also be quick to mention that Zambia is a country where labor matters are handled amicably through the trade unions, and this trade unionism is very key in this particular country. Each and every worker is requested to be unionized, so that when they are unionized, then we find means and ways of helping to protect them from abuse. We wouldn't want to see a situation where any citizen is abused in any way. We would want to see a situation where every citizen, be it regardless of what type of job they do, they are getting a living wage, a wage that will support them, a wage that will sustain them and their families. That is what
So, Mr. Lungu, there is a case I was reading about Zambia, and it was involving Chinese doing business in Zambia. And the case was that there are over 600 Chinese business-owned ventures in Zambia, which are, number one, employing children, number two, underpaying workers, but of course, discriminating women against men. And some of them have made companies like prisons. People are not allowed to go home. The Chinese, and being the biggest investors right now in Zambia, are the biggest lawbreakers when it comes to employment. I want to ask you, and later on, Fidelis, what are you talking about this as a civil society organization? The Chinese giving jobs to Zambians, but also working in deplorable environment. Mr. Lungu, what's your take on that first?
Thank you very much again. And I want to agree with you that indeed we have a number of Chinese investment in the country, which of course we don't discourage. Zambia is a capitalist country, and we allow investment of people from different countries. They have invested various ways in this country. Now, talking about abuse, I want to indicate to you right now that indeed there have been cases that were reported, I remember, to the Ministry of Labor, of some Chinese people who have been abusing citizens. And they were actually called upon to say this should come to an end. We cannot promote, my dear brother, abuse of citizens by the investors. Any investor, be it a local investor or indeed a foreign investor, does not have the right to abuse workers, does not have the right to employ children, no matter who this particular investor is. They don't have. And whether this investor is actually Chinese or Zambian, we are actually saying no one is supposed to abuse workers. That's why we, in the civil society organizations, have always been calling for these workers to ensure that each one of them is actually unionized. Belonging to a union in Zambia is a right, and each and every worker is supposed to have their economic rights or their employment rights or their work rights protected and promoted. So any abuse of rights, those videos you have seen, or if they have been investigated, some of them, I can assure you that there are some people who, for instance, during the time when we had COVID, there was a situation where some Chinese foreigners had kept workers at their workplace without letting them go home. And when it came to the realization, those people, the officials went there and told those, you can't be keeping people like they're in prison. So we cannot promote such, my brother. We can't promote
brother, look, before you go, I saw that officer, I think he's a mayor, who went there to check on the workers, and I later learned that he was made to apologize because China put lots of pressure on your president. What do you say about that?
He was made to apologize for
telling Chinese to treat Zambians properly.
In any case, it's good that you remember that particular case. Yes. What I'm trying to draw your attention to is the fact that no employer in this country is allowed to abuse workers, be it local or foreign. There is no one who is allowed to do that. It is a crime, it's an offense, it's against the law.
Yes.
Human rights.
What I was asking you, I'll ask you to Fidelis now. The mayor went there. I follow Zambia like I follow Uganda. Zambia is my country. I'm Zambian too.
Yes.
Now,
and you're an African. I can see you're a very proud African, and I like it.
I love Africa. I follow everything that is important in Zambia. I follow that news. This mayor went there. This mayor was protecting Zambians from abuse of Chinese. This mayor was attacked by the Chinese embassy, by the Chinese government, and your government forced him to retract his statement and apologize. What the heck was that?
And I want to remind you that that issue actually happened. Of course, I'm not trying to demonize the previous government, but I want to remind you that that issue happened when before we had changed government.
Under Lungu.
And people raised issues. There is no way citizens can be abused in the hands of the Chinese. Remember, I told you earlier to say one of the reasons why Zambians decided to change government was because they were not satisfied with the way certain things were taking place. So that could be considered as one of the things. Zambians were not happy to say they seem to be less protected as compared to the foreigners. And then they changed government. Maybe if you ask me now to say, has there been an improvement from that particular aspect?
Go ahead.
Yes, I would proudly say from the time we changed the government, and maybe because of the push of civil society organizations, I personally, maybe from speaking for, I don't know, maybe my brother Fidelis will add a view, we have not seen any complaint of a citizen for now being abused by the Chinese or foreign investors, and then nothing happens. Or the Minister of Labor remains quiet. The Minister of Labor, immediately they get information. Because these are institutions, remember, we are talking about involving institutions in managing the affairs of the state. So any matter that involves the citizens, any matter that involves abuse of rights, we have responsible institutions that ought to look into those matters. And one of those institutions is the Ministry of Labor. So any matter that has been reported to the Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Labor has taken appropriate action. I cannot be one of the people who would crap or appreciate the abuse of a Zambian worker at the hand of their employers. We can't do that. We would want to see workers being happy, being proud, and indeed enjoying their work. Their work.
I have loved your submission, Mr. Lungu. It was really on point. Really on point. We just missed your picture, but I think we are going to have you back next Saturday. Maybe the video will be clear. Linda, back to you. You have a question for Mr. Lungu.
It's just so wonderful hearing your passion that you have for your country, and for something that we all battle with at the moment is when we see our laws that are actually being bent and aren't being followed anymore. Some of them are completely broken. I think, and I said earlier in the show, what is amazing about Zambia that I've noticed is that your citizens are very awake, on the ball, and active as soon they know their rights, much more than a lot in our other countries do. A lot of people don't know. Your people don't keep quiet. They stand up and they speak for what they believe. And it's correct, because what our governments are elected by us, we the citizens who are the taxpayers and the ones that are, on the ground, should be able to, in any country in Africa, call our presidents out if they are not adhering to the law and they are veering off, and bring them back. And we shouldn't be harassed and intimidated and arrested and that for that. So I think that Zambia for me has always set an example in Southern Africa. It's a country that we all have always felt is peaceful, and it's being run. You don't have a lot of human rights violations, and everything is going along really nicely in Zambia. The fact that things have been changing in the last 2 years, I don't know whether it's just because I'm more aware, but we see so many people standing up and speaking out against that and following the correct protocols, which I think is wonderful. And I don't know what your secret is. I don't know how Zambia is so different to so many of our other countries, where your women are represented a lot more than in many of our countries in government and parliament. 13%, I think the figure is down. And even your youth activists that are doing activism with the pollution and conservation related issues. I just want to know what your secret is for raising citizens that are so aware of their human rights and actually activate them when they're being violated, because it's something that we need in the whole of Africa, is for people to become more aware that they do have rights, and that it's okay to stand up to your government or people in leadership if they aren't following those rights. Just be polite about it and do it in a nice way, a non-violent way, to get what you want. So Zambia sets a very good example for the rest of us to know. Zambia are bringing their government and president to book and calling them out on issues and standing together united as a country from what we see on the outside. And I just think that it's a really good lesson for the rest of us to learn from, because I'm not aware of any other countries that are so actively involved, which has always given me great hope for Zambia. Things that we see going a bit astray now, you guys are on top of them and you're dealing with them straight away, although you saw, obviously there's issues with systems and everything. But I see Zambia as being a country with a lot of hope because your citizens are so active. And that is from having a passion for your country and wanting it to really, really prosper. So it's very interesting to see this dynamic in Zambia that very few countries in Africa actually have. So I don't know what you guys are doing, if it's something in your water or what's making you so different, but it's admirable.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda, for your kind words. And indeed, that is the Zambia that you have described. You have now described Zambia very well, Linda, a country which you are looking to, a country that you feel can be a good example to the other nations around, a country that
because
you see...
Linda is Zambian, so she's biased.
Well, my mother...
May I continue?
Well, I'm half Zambian, but my mother always... No, I'm from Zimbabwe, you see. My mother always said Zambia did everything better than Zimbabwe. Zambia was the only country. The Zambians, they spoke better, they walked better, everything. The Zambians were better than. It was always a joke between us. Yeah.
Exactly. And of course, jokes aside, Zambia is a shining example. There we can't deny
it. It is. It always has been. Yeah.
This and now you are asking, what is it that you people are doing right?
Yes.
What is it that other people can learn from you as Zambians? What is it? So I want to indicate to you that, and I want to take opportunity of this particular gathering or interview, or is it program, to explain to the African people that we as Africans, we have a very big task to play in order to improve our governance system. Yes. And one of the most important things we need to do is to implement what we call political tolerance. Tolerance is very important amongst people of different aspirations, desires, tribes. Generally, Africa is a continent which is what I would say heterogeneous. We are a continent with a lot of different categories of people in terms of tribes, religion, and so on. Therefore, tolerance is very key in that regard. We need to find ways and means of tolerating each other's views, as long as those views are not going against the rules. What is very important is to protect, we need to protect our own rules. The rule of law is very key in democracy. Leaders must lead by the law. The problem that I have is when leaders have a constitution and they choose to go against, that is despotism. They decide to go against their own rules which they've set for themselves. There we are creating a problem. So therefore we need to exercise serious tolerance. And again, we need to allow our media to be free. The media plays a very significant role in promoting unity in the country. So if our media houses are given an opportunity to be free, we are going to see a situation where most of the people will participate in governance without intimidation. The media must be free to do what? To share the information that they need to share. Arbitrary arrest. Let us not arrest each other in Africa anyhow. It is wrong. It doesn't promote unity. It doesn't promote wellness. It doesn't. Let people be arrested based on laid down rules and charged accordingly without being persecuted. We shouldn't be persecuting one another. We are not going to see any development in Africa if we are going to base our politics on persecution. We need to base our politics on participation. That is what is going to promote a good governance and involvement of everyone. That is what we want to see in Africa. And when people are conducting reports, let them not only base their reports or let them not base their reports only on politicians. We should also look at women. We should also look at children. We should also look at those people that are living in low-flying areas. What are they saying about human rights? So that we have a picture that shows us the common man in terms of these particular rights. So by and large, we would say that the laws are very key. Let people live by their laws, which they have given themselves. Let government officials live by the dictates of the policies and the laws. That is what is going to help us.
That's a very good one, Lungu. I'll be stopping you from there just because of time. But I must say you have delivered in the most professional way. And I'm very, very happy with your submissions. Back to Fidelis. Fidelis gave us a very good introduction. Fidelis filled the gap very, very well. Fidelis, as an expert, we're talking about the economy, which is struggling. Me, I'm an economist, though I'm a commercial lawyer, but I look at the country in terms of numbers. I look at figures. Now, Zambia was initially a state-led economy before it went into a market-led economy. And now we are seeing lots of debt. That burden is weighing Zambia down. We are seeing a company called BlackRock, a New York company, which has Zambia must pay this company an external debt of $220 million US. The debt burden of Zambia is going out of the roof. China is demanding lots of money from you. Now, as an expert on policy, of course, we talked about the food crisis in Zambia, 48 districts being hit hard. People are going without food, almost 3 million people lack what to eat. Now, from a policy perspective, I want to know what is the policy and brief of Zambia when it comes to employment issues? What's the policy, just in brief, highlights when it comes to food security in Zambia? And lastly, we are talking about employment, also food. Let us talk about those two. What does the policy say? Do we have gaps that we need to fill as Zambia going forward?
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. I will be brief and short and in point. Yes. The United Party for National Development, the UPND, was chosen to lead Zambia's government for ensuing for the next 5 years, from August 2021 to 2026. Several difficulties accompany their ascension to power, because Zambia's economy was in its worst state in the many years. The effects of the COVID-19 pandemic were having a negative impact on our growth, and inflation was very high. The Kwacha's exchange rate to the other major currencies was among the worst in the world to top it off. The UPND administration inherited a total load costing debt of about $30 billion by the end of 2021.
Yes.
So you talk about the deadweight burden of the public debate on the economy lowers opportunities for investment and growth. Even though the debt may have been acquired for good reasons, the economy tends to be worse when inherited, because debt is higher for a given stock of public capital. I'll give an example like the value on taxation total cost associated with the debt structure for our country. One of the mistakes I think this administration, for me as a policy expert, that might have made, I think, was to rush into entering into negotiations with the IMF without looking at other options, because they should have looked at other options first to say what are the variable options for us before we engage the IMF. Why was the IMF and our colleagues that were there previously, why were they having difficult to engage the IMF? What was the challenging? The moment if they had done that, the various civil society organizations, as my brother, Comrade Luckson, alluded to it, the civil society organizations in Zambia, I would say, are the brain, are the think tank of our country, because throughout the introduction of multi-part democracy, the civil society organizations in Zambia have been a think tank They are in various categories. There are those that deals with human rights. There are those that deal with policy formulation. There are those even that are dealing with the debt restructuring, offering alternative solutions to the government to say what needs to be done. So now, when the United Nations took over the KMON as a party, it's actually a trade-off can be made to you as an economist. You understand, the moderator, that as a result of both public and private investment, different output growth is slows as a result. The argument holds that nations with heavier debt loads will logically invest less in infrastructure and public services than in nations with lighter debt loads.
Yes.
Which Zambia finds itself at crossroads now, because Zambia cannot engage at this stage. Zambia cannot engage further in serious infrastructure capital projects because the debt is too high, and I think there's no willing, there's nobody who will be willing.
Minister of Finance, just 2 weeks ago, your minister was
exactly
in the papers crying for Minister of Finance about the debt. They are failing to pay the debt, but they are getting more debt.
When you look at what is happening, you look at the employment rate in our country. Youth unemployment rate in Zambia is around 11.03% at the moment. Youth unemployment with a decline of 1%.
Yes.
So there is no significant change from 2021 to 9 August this year to 2023. Why is it so? It's because they seem to be, for me, I've been clear. Some of us who have been clear, we have spoken our minds. Zambia is facing a challenge where we want to become petty to do with our politics. We want to paint our own African continent. I'm happy that Linda and others have read the country. Our politicians continue to dent this country and put a place as if we're a country at war. And that certain statements have actually slowed investors to come to Zambia to invest in Zambia, because the investors would never come to a country where there's political instability. Investors want to come to a country where there's political stability and there is assurance of protection of their investment. At the moment, with the coming of law enforcement agencies, yes, I, as a policy expert, I would say that the Anti-Corruption and the Drug Enforcement Commission, in their fight against corruption and abuse and the money laundering, I think they send a long message, actually, because the target of following, you do not follow business investment in a manner that you are following a normal criminal. You lay down proper investigations on them.
Fidelis,
yes.
I know you have good research, and I trust your brain, but we are going to be cut off because of time limits. We are going to have this show next Saturday, if Linda permits, and the team. Of course,
yes, that would be lovely.
Where we shall be having a way forward, and we shall be looking forward to have our Honorable Saboi to come back, and she'll be the first one to speak because she was cut short. We wish to have you back next Saturday, and we continue with this conversation, but this time looking at the way forward. Now, having said that, I want to invite Mr. Luckson Lungu to come and give us your parting shot. Then we shall go to Fidelis. Then Linda will be able to close the show.
Thank you.
Lungu, are you there?
Thank you. I'm there. Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Allow me to appreciate you for having organized this very important discussion. That is very wonderful of you, and please keep it up.
Thank you.
On the part of way forward, allow me to say that Africans, can we make sure that we don't use human rights to underdevelop ourselves? Human rights are instrumental principles. What that means is that they can be used to better our lives. We must not use human rights to bring confusions in our own continent. We must not use human rights to create divisions amongst ourselves. We should use human rights to promote well-being, wellness. We should use human rights to make sure that each and every person becomes or is given an opportunity to progress in life. That is what human rights exist for. They don't exist to create chaos. Human rights don't exist for that.
That's
so anyone who is using human rights to abuse other people is not doing that in the interest of human rights. Anyone who is using human rights to insult others is not using that in the interest of human rights. Anyone who is using human rights to become derogatory towards other people is not. We have to promote our togetherness. Human rights should bring us together so that we can collectively solve our problems in Africa.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of problems indeed. We can only solve them collectively, and collectiveness is
Agreed.
when we embrace each and every person that is resident, that is a citizen in the country. Then lastly, the rule of law. Let us all live by the dictates of the laws that we have given ourselves. If the laws are not good, can we amend them and give ourselves laws that will promote rights? We should never have laws that infringe on the enjoyment of rights. We have a law in Zambia called the Public Order Act. It's a law that we in the civil society organizations have been calling for amendment because it does not work in the interest of the enjoyment of human rights. So we must come up with laws that will help us to make sure that we live by the dictates of the laws and then enjoy human rights collectively and together.
Thank you so much, Mr. Luckson Lungu. It has been an honor having you. You have given us a very beautiful way forward. But if we are going to have you, if you permit us, we shall be having you next Saturday to have this one much more into the way forward. And of course, I've loved the way you have presented your issues. Of course, I can say for now that Zambia is taking the route Uganda has taken, but I will explain that in the next show. Mr. Fidelis Solomon Ngoma, can we have your parting shot before Linda closes the show?
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you very much to Linda and for the studio for hosting Zambia. It's always a pleasure to be among you guys, and I'm humbled. We have been a family. We have now been in a family because we are one. We are Africans.
Yes,
my last closing remarks, I think for me is to. I was clear last time when we issued a statement. We were clear. We talk about that the tax revenue in Zambia, especially in the mines, we are not getting our share from our minerals. And we hope that the new Dawn administration under President Agandechilem will listen to the voices of civil society and the people of Zambia to say, because we are clear from the one that we want the government to introduce the windfall tax, because at the moment the Zambia is losing over $3 billion every year due to tax collected revenue. So if that $3 billion can be corrected, I think we can levels of poverty in rural areas where some of us do most of our research travel. We have seen the levels of poverty, which is a sad story for a country that is rich with so many minerals. But as my brother said, Luckson, we take one step at a time. We will continue engaging the government and we'll continue maintaining our position on what we believe that is good for the people of Zambia and the people of Africa. I thank you very much, and have a blessed night.
Back to Linda. It was
you.
blessing having you, Fidelis. Back to Linda to close the show. Linda, I can't hear you. Linda, I can't hear you. You are supposed to be closing the show. But
can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. It's been lovely, and we really welcome you back again. I feel quite inspired, Kato, after having a little bit of that Zambian passion and wearing off after people that are so passionate about putting their country on the right tracks. And it's what I always say, it's my mantra in life, is that as African people, we've got to stop viewing each other as foreigners and realize that they're not foreigners, these are our neighbors. And we can only solve the collective issues on our continent if we work together in unity. It's the West isn't coming to save us. The UN isn't coming. There's no God. There's no one that's coming to save us. Only we can save ourselves and each other if we do it together. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same things for our continent. None of us want greed and power and everything we can get our hands on. We just want peace, food on the table, jobs, and a good future for our children. And we can really do this if we work together, because we are more alike than different. We all face very similar issues in all of our countries, some worse than others. And I believe that we need to start speaking up for each other and stop viewing our countries as being our country like a little island, and extend at least over our borders and support each other, because that is, at the end of the day, that is the African way, that it always has been in Africa, where you take care for your own people and for your neighbors. And, you know, we just need to embrace that and work together, because together we are stronger than we are as individuals, and I firmly believe in that. So I just love these sessions where we've got 4 different countries represented here today, with Kabeko as well, Kenya, how we can really learn from other countries. And each country has something that they're really good and excelling at. And I just think it's wonderful that we can draw on each other's knowledge to guide us with way forwards that we perhaps don't have, like Uganda with the humanist schools, and now Zambia with the way with their human rights, take on human rights. We need to start working together, because no one is going to save our continent except for us. She's our mother, Africa, and nobody will fight harder for their continent, for the mother, than the children. So we do need to unite. So thanks very much for joining us tonight, guys. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Fidelis Ngoma. Thank you, Luckson Lungu and Honorable Saboi, for being part of us today. Hopefully we shall have
you very much.
Next Saturday. Looking forward to it. Stay well, stay better, be positive.
Thank
See
you.
Again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks Dennis and Brian behind the scenes as well. Thanks, guys.
In Chingola district is a small area with about 47 households, a non-functional police post, bars and shops, and at least a community school to keep the children going. Some beds live with people, and interestingly, this is where one of the most talked about eating competitions that has forced people outside their houses is taking place. The place has been littered with A4-sized posters of writings about the competition pitting Brighton Mutoka and Bright Kabaso, who are said to have a good appetite and always hungry for challenges. Organizers prepared nshima from 15 kilograms of mealie meal with water measuring 25 liters, 3 kilograms of meat, vegetables, and kapenta. It took over 1 hour to prepare the meal, and with entrance fee pegged at 2 kwacha, confusion at the gate was expected, as others were willing to do anything to watch the eating competition for free. In this competition, which saw some spectators on a hill, time was not a factor. What mattered most was who would finish the nshima faster than the other. The 2 competitors shook hands as a sign of fair play. After 1 hour and 26 minutes of eating, Mutoka seemed to have run out of energy, which gave the people's favorite, Mwine Wanshima, a sign of victory. And indeed, it was finished for Mutoka, who had to be helped by his uncle to dress and get up on his feet. The Movie TV news crew managed to locate Mutoka, who attributed his defeat to his opponent's use of black magic, also known as juju.
They'll never compete with me. It's on our phone. That's not what you shingwa. What in Kutasana, but in Shigui until now, Shigui. Now we know maybe one better way that now we want to.
But Kabaso parried away those suggestions, stating that he is a farm hard worker who is required to eat huge portions of food. He bragged that he finishes 60 kilograms of mealie meal every month. And organizer Harold Kanjugo promised more of such competitions.
Kulama international tiratuwa fulishi aho kitwatu adira kali emo badina bambi badama nimende novamba batirara ndana bena turuwa abo uchuwe mpara na kuna twata uwe suyantanshi ngata utiratu mat saponsa we
Locals were not shocked that Mwine Wanshima won the contest, considering his latest stunt at a funeral in which he ate 2 big plates of Nshima alone.
Bakwete chiriro rana yobwadi wadi ulawa patirino wampera kadishi hadi kushishi hadi ati yawe kweno bwadi na wuntu no ndikeni kona wumbi wabuda kadishi na kambi bampera hadi
so twalita mpera ku bwadi tudishi tuwata na majombo palasi hadi lidio bwadi namba twalita mwiba na katapateka yeke alo namba na isa mwipshanati namba bwadi mwadi aimo nda katapayeka yeka chao na mfua uluse pantu ipachiro kate pachiro nga mwata mbofo ndingi.
350 kwacha was raised from gate takings, and the amount was shared among the winner, the runners-up, the gate bouncers, and the organizer himself. Mike Mubanga, Movie TV News, in Chingola.